Hey everyone, this is Davy Mooney coming to you from the University of North Texas, where I run the jazz guitar program. Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist, got my new CD live at National Sawdust. Got my Mel Bay book, Personalizing Jazz Vocabulary. I'm working on a new book. Stay tuned for more info. Shout out to Jazz Guitar Today for working with me, collaborating with me on these videos to get them out into the world. And today I want to talk about the Tom Jobim, the Antonio Carlos Jobim song, If You Never Come to Me, which in Portuguese is called Inutil Paisagem, which means useless landscape. I love that title. I wish they'd kept that title in English. I guess, for marketing purposes, I don't know. I mean, the English lyric is pretty close to the meaning of the Portuguese lyric, but anyway, it's famously recorded, I think probably most people would know Sinatra doing it on the record that Tom Jobim and Sinatra did together. He does it in the key of C. I'm going to talk about it today, just as a song, how beautiful it is, and how I really think in 16 bars there's so much music contained in these 16 bars. It's really incredible how short the form actually is. But for me, the most brilliant, and there have been many recordings. My favorite personal fave is the version on the album Elis and Tom with Elis Regina and Tom Jobim. That album is a masterpiece, and I tell all my students, if they haven't checked that album out, it's really, I think, one of the great, I guess you call it Brazilian jazz, Brazilian MPB, Música Popular Brasileira. But it's just a great album. Great. I think it's from the early 70s. It's got the perfect sonically, it's beautiful. The arrangements are great. It's not overproduced, but it's not underproduced. It's just, and then it's got a lot of the, for me, definitive versions of Jobim's like most famous songs, like "I Wish You Marso." But anyway, just to go over the basics of Inutil Paisagem, If You Never Come to Me. Elis Regina and Tom Jobim, they do it in A flat. Sinatra does it in C. But the basic harmony is like you have an A flat major to G major to G flat major 7. And right off the bat, what's cool about the melody against that is you get this contrary motion where the melody is the 5th of A flat going up to the major 6th of G to the major 7th of G flat. And it's just really nice. Then an F7, B flat minor, D flat minor. Then there's this series of dominants, C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat 7, back to A flat, then A7. It's interesting, at the end, you've got 4-1 instead of 5-1. Which is really clever to me, and kind of a Jobim, he'll do a lot of like 1 and then a minor 5 chord. Sometimes he'll be like, he likes to do that a lot, but that 4-1 I think is brilliant. And that's the basic structure of the song. But something else I want to talk about in terms of, I would call it the arrangement that they do on Elis and Tom on that album, except that there are elements of the one might call the arrangement, the other notes sort of beyond just the melody and the chords, which is what we tend to reduce tunes to in jazz. Jazz tunes, we usually get a lead sheet that just has the chord symbol and the melody, and maybe a bass line, I guess, if the bass line is super specific, but often we neglect some elements that are there, especially in, I use this as an example, that happens a lot with Thelonious Monk's music. There are elements that are in his tunes that would require probably at least like a double, a grand staff to kind of get at some of those things that are contained in the song, and across different versions you hear them in addition to just the melody and the chords. And the same thing with this song. So like for instance, I'll just go into it a little bit. So they go through the tune I think only 3 times, and so the first time you hear the chords, she's singing, I can't sing so high, but and right off the bat, so you've got this contrary motion thing going on in the bass, and on the second chord you hear Tom, or really at the end of the first chord you hear like he puts a 9 on the top. And then when she goes up here, he goes from the 9 of A flat, B flat. When the G chord comes, the bass goes down, the melody goes up, and there's also, on top in the piano, there's a B natural. So you get really like, I can't play all the stuff because I'm not a piano player, but there's the melody. So he has a chromatic note going at the top. It's just brilliant, right? It's like the melody goes up in half steps, the bass goes down in half steps, and then above the melody, there's actually another note going up in fifths. And then he goes up one more on the F7 to a flat 13, and then she goes, and he has a little answer where he goes. Really beautiful. When he gets to B flat minor, she's sung, you know, tanto céu, and he goes. It's this beautiful little counter melody, or whatever you want to call it, on the B flat minor, and then she goes, and he does this little bluesy thing. On the D flat minor. Kind of sounds like Agua de Bebé, another tune of his, like he's maybe referencing that, I don't know, but so that's going on against, you know, she sings her melody and he does that up on the top, and then she the next part during that dominant cycle, he has a counter, I guess you could call it the way he plays with the alterations on the dominants. He actually goes C13 to C flat 13. Then the chord goes to F7 and he goes to the 9. So there's this chromatic thing again against her melody. And he goes up to down to an F7 flat 9. Then a B flat 13. So you get the bass, he goes. There's so much going on. I said I can't really recreate it totally on the guitar, but it blows my mind every time I hear it, how much is actually going on and how considered each note choice is, you know, contrapuntally and melodically. So again, I'll leave the melody alone, but so he's going with the piano, it's like to an E flat 7 sharp 9. A flat 13, and again he goes D flat 7 sharp 9, and then resolving. So a lot going on. And then she goes and he answers it. And that's just the first time through the tune. They do it again. They sing. There's a second verse, and this time when he gets to the, well, right from the bat, he starts singing another note. So he's got his bass line against her melody, and this time he doesn't really emphasize the ascending fifths, but he starts singing these low notes like. Then the F7 comes. Then the B flat minor. Sings along with this part. Then when they get to the C7, he continues the counter line in the piano, and he also goes with his voice. He sings the thirds below that. See if I can recreate all this. So his voice is going. Gets to a G natural on the B flat 13, and he starts going, and it's a little bit out of tune, which is actually to me makes it like hipper, you know. It's just so real, you know, so human, you know. He starts singing these perfect fourths. when she goes, "Eh, na, da," he goes, "Eh, na, da." So I don't know if you caught all that. I somehow don't always catch it either. But so in addition to this, she's singing the melody. He goes. Sings the sharp 9 down to the flat 7. On the A flat 7 he sings the 13 down to the 3rd. On D flat 7 sharp 9 down to the flat 7, and then answer in the chord. So amazing, right? So much going on. And you go across different versions. You don't hear every single part of that, but there's certain elements that you hear again, and on the solo part, the piano solo, he makes a reference to, I swear it's got to be the tune Never Let Me Go, because he goes like this, he goes... Then on the B flat minor, he goes back to... She comes back in the second half. She can say, and he does all that crazy stuff again. And then they tag the last part, and I love he does this beautiful. So she sings, and often on the piano he'll answer her. And then one time she goes, and he goes. I love that part. Anyway, suffice it to say, there's so much going on in the arrangement, but it's really part of the song too. And a lot of his music, you'll hear, there are those moving counter lines. Another good example is Double Rainbow, the Portuguese title, Chovendo na Roseira, where there's a whole middle section where the harmony is created by, you can kind of reduce it to chord symbols, but not really. It's that there's a bass note, and there's just moving notes. There's the melody, and then a bass, and then a note that's moving the other direction, and the harmony is created sort of contrapuntally by the movement of the notes, kind of like in classical music, particularly like listen to certain string quartets. You can't really reduce it to chord symbols or block harmony, right? The harmony is created by the movement of the notes. And again, I don't know why I see a similarity. I mean, Jobim and Monk are very different. Their music is very different, but in Monk there's often like those elements too that I think we, when we reduce things to just a lead sheet with chord symbols and melody, it's like we're doing the music a little bit of a disservice. I think we should have, at least for those two composers' music and probably many others, at least a grand staff so we can get some of those elements in there. Wayne Shorter's another one. But anyway, I'm going to play on the tune a little bit. I always like to improvise, because when you're playing on the changes, just the seventh chords of the song are so interesting. There's so much music and so much harmony that I don't necessarily feel like I need to refer to all that stuff in my improvisation, but I can too if I want, which is another thing with Monk's music. I think you could just blow on the changes, or if you want to incorporate some of those other elements, that can sound cool too, as long as you don't overdo it. It's kind of a delicate balancing act. So anyway, here's a few choruses of Inutil Paisagem, aka If You Never Come to Me. Enjoy.